October 12th, 1995, the Savoy Hotel, London. 9:32 p.m. Princess Diana sat nervously in a private suite, still wearing her elegant navy dress from an earlier engagement. But she wasn't there for any official duty. She was there to meet him, the man who had written the most devastating critique of royal life she'd ever read. James Mitchell didn't care about her title, her fame, or her connections. To him, she was a story that needed to be told truthfully, a woman trapped behind the facade that the world worshipped. What the press didn't know was that while the media obsessed over her divorce from Charles and her new relationships, Diana's heart was being captured by a Pulitzer Prize-winning author who wanted to expose everything she tried to hide. But what nobody knows is how far Diana was willing to go to protect this love and the heartbreaking reason their secret relationship ended. The meeting that changed everything. June 3rd, 1995, Kensington Palace. Diana was receiving a stream of publishers and journalists pitching biography ideas. As the most photographed woman in the world, everyone wanted to tell her story, but no one seemed interested in the truth. "Your Royal Highness," her private secretary said, "the next appointment is James Mitchell, the author who wrote The Price of Privilege." Diana tensed. She had read Mitchell's book, a brutal examination of how institutions destroy individuals. It had won the Pulitzer Prize and made Mitchell famous for his unflinching honesty. "He's here to propose a biography?" Diana asked nervously. "Yes, ma'am, though I should warn you, he's quite direct." When James Mitchell walked into her sitting room, Diana was struck by how ordinary he looked. No expensive suit, no affected manners, just worn jeans, a simple shirt, and intelligent gray eyes that seemed to see right through her carefully constructed image. "Your Royal Highness?" he said with a slight nod, not the deep bow she usually received. "Thank you for seeing me." "Mr. Mitchell," Diana replied, gesturing to a chair, "I've read your book. And I'm not sure whether to be terrified or intrigued that you want to write about me." James smiled slightly. "That's probably the right response. I don't write fairy tales, Your Royal Highness. I write truth, and truth is usually uncomfortable." Diana found herself appreciating his honesty. Most people told her what they thought she wanted to hear. "What makes you think you know my truth?" "I don't," James admitted. "That's why I want to talk to you. Really talk, not conduct the sanitized interviews your press office usually arranges. And if I refuse, then another biographer will tell a version of your story that's half accurate and completely misunderstood. At least with me, you'd have a chance at something real." But wait, you haven't seen what happened during their first real conversation. The exchange that made Diana realize this man was different. The conversation that changed her mind. Later that evening, Kensington Palace drawing room. Against all protocol and advice from her team, Diana asked James to stay for tea. "You should know," Diana said, "I've refused every biography proposal for 3 years." "Because they all wanted to write the version of you they imagined, not the version that exists," James replied. Diana was startled by his insight. "How did you know?" "Because I've spent my career watching how institutions create narratives that serve them, not the people trapped inside those narratives. The palace has spent years crafting your image. Any authorized biography would just reinforce that construction." "And your biography wouldn't?" "My biography would show the woman behind the image, the cost of that image, and why the truth matters more than the fantasy." They talked until midnight about everything except her public life. James told her about growing up in a working-class family in Manchester, his scholarship to Oxford, his years as an investigative journalist before becoming an author. Diana told him about her childhood loneliness, her terror before the wedding, her desperate attempts to be the princess everyone wanted while losing herself completely. "I spent 15 years trying to be perfect," Diana said quietly. "And what did it cost you?" James asked. "Everything that mattered." Diana had never spoken so honestly with someone she'd just met. There was something about James's genuine interest, his lack of judgment, that made her feel safe. Hold up. Diana's next decision shocked everyone who knew her. The secret collaboration begins. July 1995. The unprecedented arrangement. What started as a potential biography became something much more intimate. Diana agreed to weekly private sessions with James. No staff present, no recordings, just honest conversations about her life. "Princess," her private secretary warned, "this is highly irregular. We can't control what he writes." "I don't want to control it," Diana replied. "I want it to be true." Diana had never experienced this kind of relationship before. With Charles, conversations had been about duty and disappointment. With therapists, she'd been guarded. But with James, she could simply talk, and he would listen without agenda or judgment. She would meet him in secret locations, small cafes in unremarkable neighborhoods, hotel conference rooms booked under false names, even his modest flat in Bloomsbury when she needed to escape completely. "Today the press printed another lie about me," Diana told him one evening, still wearing a wig and ordinary clothes from her disguised journey to his flat. "Which lie?" James asked, making tea in his tiny kitchen. "Does it matter? They've printed so many." "Every lie matters because each one obscures a truth. Tell me the real story and I'll make sure it's preserved." Diana looked at him with something close to wonder. "You really believe the truth matters?" "The truth is the only thing that matters. Everything else is just performance." But you're not ready for how Diana's feelings deepened. The transformation? August 1995. Diana falling in love. For the first time in years, Diana was experiencing real intellectual and emotional connection. Not the arranged partnership with Charles or the superficial attention from other men, but genuine understanding. Diana's closest friends noticed the change immediately. "Diana, you're different lately," her friend Rosa Monckton observed. "More settled somehow. What's changed?" "I'm working on something important," Diana said carefully. "A biography, I heard." "With that American author?" "British, actually, and yes. But it's more than just a biography. It's the first time someone's really listened to me." Diana began reading everything James had written, studying his approach to truth-telling, understanding his philosophy about institutions and individuals. She read late into the night, making notes, preparing for their sessions with the same intensity she'd once brought to learning royal protocol. Her protection officers were concerned about the irregular meetings. "Ma'am, you're taking significant security risks with these private meetings," her bodyguard mentioned. "I'm being more honest than I've been in 15 years," Diana replied. "That's worth some risk." The truth was, Diana was falling for a man who saw her not as a princess or a celebrity, but as a complex, flawed, fascinating human being whose story deserved to be told with compassion and truth. Don't miss this detail, what Diana was willing to risk for honesty. The ultimate revelation. September 1995, Diana's shocking confession. Diana's trust in James grew so deep that she began telling him things she'd never told anyone, including details that could destroy her reputation and damage the monarchy. "James," she said one evening as they sat in his flat, her disguise discarded, "I need to tell you about my suicide attempts. The real details, not the sanitized version." James set down his notepad. "Diana, are you sure? Once this is public, you can't take it back." "I'm sure. The palace has controlled my narrative for so long, making me seem crazy or attention-seeking. I want people to understand what desperation actually feels like when you're trapped in an institution that sees you as a problem to manage rather than a person to help." Diana had it all planned out. She would tell James everything: the eating disorder, the self-harm, the confrontations with Charles, her fears about her mental health, the palace's attempts to medicate and silence her rather than help her. "I could show you as a survivor," James said gently, "someone who fought through impossible circumstances and emerged stronger." "That's exactly what I want. Not a victim, not a saint, just a woman who struggled and survived." She also told him about her marriage in devastating detail. The loneliness, Charles's continued relationship with Camilla, her own attempts to find comfort and connection, the impossible standards she was held to while Charles was quietly forgiven for everything. This is where everything changes. James's ethical crisis. The impossible position. September 1995, the moral dilemma. The more time James spent with Diana, the more he realized he was facing an impossible situation. He was falling in love with the woman whose story he was supposed to tell objectively. "I can't write this book," James told his publisher during a tense phone call. "What do you mean you can't write it? You have unprecedented access to Princess Diana." "That's exactly the problem. I have access because she trusts me, and I'm betraying that trust by falling in love with her." There was a long pause. "You're in love with Princess Diana?" "I'm in love with Diana Spencer, the woman who hides behind the title, the one who's funny and damaged and brave and terrified. And I can't write her story objectively anymore." James tried to maintain professional distance, but it was impossible. Every conversation revealed more of Diana's intelligence, humor, and courage. Every meeting showed him how trapped she was by expectations she'd never agreed to. "Diana," he finally said during one of their sessions, "I need to tell you something." "About the book?" "About us." Diana went still. There is no us, James. There's a writer and a subject. That's what they're supposed to be, but that's not what this has become, at least not for me. Diana stood and walked to his window, looking out at ordinary London life she could never fully have. I know, she said softly. But wait, Diana wasn't ready to stop their collaboration. The secret relationship begins, October 1995, March 1997. Despite the complications, Diana and James continued their work together, though both knew it had become something far more than a professional relationship. Diana would arrive at James's flat wearing her disguises, and they would spend hours talking, sometimes about the book, but increasingly about their lives, their hopes, their impossible situation. This is madness, James said one evening. I'm supposed to be writing objectively about your life, and instead I'm falling more in love with you every time we meet. Diana moved closer to him. Then stop writing the book. I can't. Your story needs to be told. Then stop loving me. I can't do that either. They would take long walks in Hyde Park after dark, Diana in her wig and ordinary clothes, James beside her, two people having the most ordinary dates while living the most extraordinary complication. In another life, Diana said one night, we could have just met at a bookshop or a cafe, fallen in love without all this complexity. In another life, James agreed, you wouldn't be you, and I fell in love with exactly who you are, including all the impossible parts. Diana even brought James to secret locations she'd never shared with anyone, a small cottage in the Cotswolds that she'd rented under a friend's name where they could spend stolen weekends pretending to be normal people having a normal relationship. What do you think would happen, Diana asked as they cooked dinner together in the cottage kitchen, if we just told everyone the truth? About the book or about us? Both. I think, James said carefully, the palace would destroy both of us. Me for compromising journalistic integrity, you for inappropriate involvement with a commoner. I'm so tired of appropriate, Diana said. I've been appropriate my entire adult life, and it's made me miserable. You're not going to believe what Diana proposed. The desperate plan. March 1997. Diana's final gamble. Knowing that their relationship couldn't continue in secret forever, Diana made a decision that surprised even James. I want you to finish the book, she told him. I want you to tell my story completely, honestly, including the fact that we fell in love during the process. James was shocked. Diana, that would be professional suicide for me and personal disaster for you. Or it would be the ultimate truth. The author who came to document my life ended up becoming part of it? Isn't that the kind of human story you write about? Diana's plan was revolutionary. Instead of hiding their relationship, she wanted to make it part of the narrative, showing how genuine connection could develop even in the most unlikely circumstances. If we're honest about everything, Diana argued, including our feelings for each other, it's not exploitation, it's just truth. The palace will never allow it, James said. The palace doesn't control my story anymore. I do. But Diana had miscalculated the consequences. When rumors of her close relationship with her biographer began circulating, the palace moved quickly to contain the situation. Don't miss this revelation. The palace's ultimatum. The heartbreaking end. May 1997. The impossible choice. Diana received a private message from the Queen's private secretary. The language was formal, but the threat was clear. Your Royal Highness, we understand you've been collaborating on an unauthorized biography. We strongly advise you to cease this project immediately. Additionally, your association with Mr. Mitchell has been noted and is considered inappropriate. We trust you'll make the correct decision regarding your son's future and your own standing. Diana showed the letter to James during their next meeting. They're threatening me with William and Harry, she said, her voice shaking. They're implying they'll use my relationship with you to question my fitness as a mother. James felt sick. Then we stop. We end this now. I don't want to end this. Diana, I won't be the reason you lose your children. I won't be the weapon they use against you. Diana was crying now. So we just give up? Let them control everything again? We accept reality. You're not just Diana. You're the mother of the future king. And I'm just a writer who fell in love with someone he can never really have. Diana made one final attempt to change his mind. James, we could leave. Go to America, live quietly. I could give up my title. And your sons? Could you give them up? I could visit them, maintain a relationship. No, you couldn't, and you know it. The palace would make sure that leaving England meant leaving William and Harry, and you would never forgive yourself, and eventually you would never forgive me. Here's the most heartbreaking part. What Diana told her closest friends, the aftermath. June 1997, Diana's confession. In the weeks before her death, Diana spoke to several friends about James and what might have been. He was different from everyone else, she told her therapist. He wanted to know the truth about me, not create another fantasy. Why couldn't you be together? Because the truth is, I'm not free. I never have been. And James understood that better than I did. He loved me enough to let me go rather than become another cage. Diana also confided in her friend Simone Simmons. I thought, if I was just honest about everything, including falling in love with my biographer, people would understand. But James was right. Honesty doesn't set you free when you're trapped in an institution. Do you regret telling him everything? I regret that telling the truth to someone who actually listened wasn't enough. I regret that love and honesty still couldn't overcome duty and institution. Diana's final words about James were to her butler, Paul Burrell. He saw me, really saw me. Not the princess or the icon, just Diana. And I had to let him go because being seen wasn't enough when I couldn't be free. The final truth, James's reaction to Diana's death. The love that endured. August 31st, 1997, the day Diana died. When James heard about Diana's death in Paris, he was at his desk, working on revisions to a completely different book. He'd destroyed every note, every recording, every draft of Diana's biography. She's gone, he said to his editor over the phone. I know, I'm sorry. Will you write about her now? No, James said firmly. I destroyed that book months ago. Her story died with our relationship. But you have material no one else has. And it will stay that way. She trusted me with her truth, and I won't betray that trust just because she's not here to protect herself. Years later, James would reflect on their relationship with enduring love and profound regret. Diana was the most authentic person I ever met, which is ironic because she lived behind the most elaborate facade. But in private, when she felt safe, she was funny, vulnerable, brilliant, and completely herself. Do you wish you'd handled things differently? Every day. But I also know that loving Diana meant protecting her, even from me. Publishing her truth would have destroyed her relationship with her sons, and I couldn't do that to her. James never wrote another biography. He returned to investigative journalism, continuing to expose institutional failures, but he never again formed such a personal connection with a subject. She taught me that sometimes the most important stories are the ones you don't tell. He explained years later, some truths are too precious to make public. Some love is too real to exploit. The truth. Diana's relationship with James Mitchell was her last chance at being truly known. Unlike Charles, who wanted her to fulfill an image, or Dodie, who enjoyed her celebrity, James wanted to understand Diana's authentic self. He wanted to document her real story with all its complexity and contradiction. But their love was impossible because the very thing that made James valuable to Diana, his commitment to truth, was the same thing that made their relationship untenable. Diana couldn't be honest about everything and still protect her position as William and Harry's mother. Diana's greatest tragedy wasn't just her death in Paris. It was that the moment she finally found someone who wanted to know and preserve her truth, she discovered that truth itself was a luxury she couldn't afford. Some loves are perfect except for the cage one person lives in. Some connections are deep enough to last forever, but impossible to maintain when institutions have more power than individuals. Diana and James's love was both of those things, a testament to what might have been possible if Diana had ever been truly free to be herself.